Good afternoon. My name's Richie, Dehne. I had the pleasure of helming Thor Ragnarok as property master. I just want to give you a little rundown on what that entails. On these big films, it's our responsibility to develop and deliver scripted action, character and atmospheric props from the written page to what you see on the screen. It's a hard position to define simply, as it involves juggling quite a few different roles from the very early pre-production period right through to that last glorious day of shoot. But what a journey we traverse in between. After the first read and breakdown of the script, we meet the production designer to get a rundown on the look and feel of the film. Then meetings with the director to fine-tune the characters' looks and develop the style of the key scripted props. Illustrators are then brought in for concept pitches. Next, camera, lighting and wardrobe departments are consulted regarding color palettes and tones before anything is made by our prop makers. Then come stunts, visual effects, legals for copyright, producers for marketing, and finally cataloging all we have produced with a studio asset manager who with Marble is Alexis Auter, who helped collate this amazing collection here. So, just a bit of a background. How did I get to do this? How did I get here? I'm defo a behind the scenes person, so this is all a bit strange standing up to do this, so bear with me reading this for you, but a bit about how I got to be a prop master and what it entails. The first question I usually get asked is, where did you train for this kind of work? What qualifications do you have or need, or what school did you go to? Well, in the not too distant past, there were no film schools like there are now to learn this craft. The only way was on the job, and it was once a very small industry here. Most of what Australia watched in cinema and television was imported content, with only limited production being shot here, mostly television, so it was hard to get a foot in the door at all to learn the ropes. I was lucky to land a job with Crawford Productions in Melbourne, which once was the only shining light in Australian television production and really was the only training ground for our industry. My first job was on a show called The Flying Doctors as a set dresser, throwing around 44-gallon drums and hay bales into trucks and sheds, which was pretty funny. I was a city boy filming out in the country during the week, selling real Aussie scenario, country scenarios to the nation. I didn't know what I was doing for it. Apologies to the true cockies out there, because I'm sure I got it wrong so many times. I remember reading a script back then that called for sheep dip, and I went to the supermarket and started looking around, the French onion dips and things. I mean, I had no idea, man. So basically, it educated me as well to a broader world. It was fast, very fast. Television is, and it's fun. Every day's filming took me to new frontiers, and it set the pace for me. I was hooked on it by then. But I used to watch the prop people on the set as I was throwing my barrels around, and they seemed to have a definitive role in sourcing and delivering the key props mentioned in the script, always dragging in interesting bits and pieces like bowerbirds. So it wasn't long before I had an opportunity to take on the role on some other TV shows for the Australian Television Children's Foundation and a couple of low-budget Aussie films. These were mostly contemporary projects, which is where I learnt to be the prop guy. Each job revealed new worlds some I'd never dreamt of, and scripted lives that at times were truly inspiring. Doctors, aliens, astronomers, pilots, strippers, psychics, bank robbers, dog whisperers, crazy slices of life which I had the privilege of characterizing with the actors and bringing to life on the screen. It kept me busy for a few years until I was asked to take on my first big picture, which was also my first American production. It was a film called The Thin Red Line, which was a 1940s war film set in Guadalcanal in the Solomon Islands. And this is where it started getting interesting. Suddenly, there was a responsibility to honor history and get it right. Instead of buying all my props from the op shops, which we did for TV, these props needed to be researched and developed and reproduced and manufactured. So I entered the world of specialized props. That job started me on a journey through history. I sometimes think my life is like that of a cartoon favourites, Mr. Peabody and Sherman. I remember them tumbling through time and space. Well, films are a bit like that. They take you away and throw you into the weirdest worlds, where you go off to work to find yourself immersed and inhabiting some very strange and foreign surrounds. From the warfields on Thin Red Line, I learnt that there was a lot more to just buying props and putting them in the actors' hands just before a scene. Beyond the 6-month pre-production, we had to design, collate and facilitate all those period pieces. My props team oversaw the props and webbing and weapons for over 300 soldiers each day for 5 months. This project set the pace and gave me a groundwork and knowledge to bring the mechanics of literally manning up an army for a few more films to come. Just, excuse me a moment. Sorry. Do you do this? Slap, slap, slap. Thanks. Sorry. So for The Quiet American, set in 1954, we scoured the markets of Ho Chi Minh City to find authentic army gear to deck out over 100 Viet Cong and North Vietnamese army. To recreate the dusty ragtag posse for Ned Kelly, we virtually lived in the Melbourne Museum and State Library of Victoria for a month, researching how they lived, what they cooked, how they passed the time of day to bring that iconic story of the bushrangers to life. By now, these projects were getting much bigger and the props team were growing from what had once been 2 or 3 people buying, modifying and painting. We were now employing researchers, concept illustrators, sculptors, leather workers, dedicated prop makers in our own prop workshops, prop painters and art finishers, all dedicated to creating specific props, but more so, all dedicated to making art. Filmmaking is our art. On Peter Pan, our props team went into fantasy overdrive, immersing ourselves into J.M. Barrie's fantastical world of Neverland, in Queensland, by the way, down on the Goldie. It brought us an opportunity to explore the notion of what life would be like being a pirate or a fairy or a mermaid or to fly. Our first journey was truly luscious over the top props. And then came another army, C.S. Lewis's Telmarine Seafaring Army for Prince Caspian in Narnia, which we shot in Prague in the Czech Republic. This was the first time I'd worked with the very talented New Zealand prop workshop Weta. Incredible weapons, swords, glaives, spears, crossbows, bows and arrows. They set the benchmark for quality that the filmmaking world had to step up to. The key to this change was employing true artisans to execute their craft in a traditional way. The reason they looked real, because they were real. Made the same way weapon masters have for centuries. Again, true artists. After a run of these pictures, it was here I realized the props department was going to need a dedicated weapons team, not only to develop and manufacture weapons, but also to oversee the intricate process we had to follow dealing with Australian government firearm requirements to make sure all safety was being addressed to have weapons on set. Enter good guy Richard Mansfield, who has a background in design and architecture, but has worked in film and TV for over 15 years. Richard and I had worked together on a couple of films, one of them being Marvel's Wolverine, where Richard had been part of the on-set prop team, working with our premier standby team, Moxie and Gabs, and making sense of the countless swords, guns, and most of all, countless number of claws we had assigned to Hugh Jackman. I think with close-up steel, fighting aluminium, action soft versions, Wolvie had about 40 pairs. Wolverine, by the way, was my first Marvel picture and my first intro into working in the comic art genre. The difference in this genre is your immediate access to the true source, comics. In setting up pre-production for Wolverine, Marvel gave us access to the back catalogue of comics from when Wolverine was introduced in issue 181 of Incredible Hulk in 1974. With heaps of research into how character developed over the next 25 years, we worked together with our director Gavin Hood and the man himself, Hugh Jackman, to hone and detail his character into the burly lumberjack that hit the screen in Wolverine Origins. It was also an insight into the crossover of Marvel Cinematic Universe, as there were many characters from X-Men in that film, among them the introduction of Wade Wilson, aka Ryan Reynolds, who would go on to helm his own picture in Deadpool. Fast forward to 2012, Hugh came back for another round in the Wolverine. This time it was helmed by action director James Mangold, who sought me out on his first day in Sydney and said, "Richie, we're going to redesign the claws." It's like, I thought he was joking. It's like, what? It's like, Hugh wants new claws. It's like, okay. So my design team set to work on new silhouettes, and over a period of a month making prototypes and dragging Hugh in for countless fittings, we eventually unveiled his new claws, which were revealed in the media as teasers in the lead up to the release, and the fans went wild. "You can't redo the claws," was their attitude. Well, we did, and they're awesome. So by now, superhero movies were really coming into their own genre, and big names all wanted to be part of it. So I was really honoured when asked by the Hobbit designers Dan Hanna and Ra Vincent to join their design team as prop master on Thor Ragnarok. Those guys had a very clear vision from day one. The inspiration for this picture was drawn from the art of Jack Kirby, one of Marvel's most celebrated artists, who was a key contributor in making Thor the celebrated superhero we know today. Jack illustrated many of Marvel's comics, including Thor, Captain America, Hulk, Fantastic Four, and Iron Man, to name a few. His style is very distinctive. He said the look of the house style of Marvel's Silver Age of comics of the 1960s. Our insightful director, Taika, has driven that style firmly into Thor Ragnarok as a beautiful homage to Jack and his incredible art. So Jack Kirby was very much our key reference in developing the props for Thor of Asgard and the new realms you will visit in this new picture. Standing here today, I'm rapt that this Marvel exhibition has brought forward a platform for all of the incredible artists that work behind the scenes on our pictures to be recognised for the true visionaries that they are. I would like to acknowledge my posse of artists who created Thor Ragnarok's props. Gillian Butler, Emile Oliver, Bob Booker, Rima, Bert, Shane Ormont, Cullen, Layla, Claire, Megan, Byron, Ebony, Jake Hepson, our illustrator, Maria Rose Payne, our incredible prop finisher, Genevieve Blewett, Drapes Master Extraordinaire. This bunch of people came together to be the most awesome team, and with the collaboration of key people, Richard Hobbs, art director, Bev Dunn, decorator, Breck Beecham from prop manufacturing, and his incredible workshop of magicians, Marvel enabled us to set up what I think was probably the best and most accomplished art department this country has seen. Their work is evident in all the Thor props, set pieces, and set dressings you'll see here today. I will now hand you over to Richard, who will give you an insider's look at the hair-raising ride in getting our prop weapons to the screen. Thank you.
Thanks, Richie. Hi, my name's Richard Mansfield. I'm really happy to be GOMA, celebrating the success of this popular culture icon. It's great to see so many of my film industry colleagues in the audience, and I'm pleased to be sharing the stage with Richie, our fearless props master. I'm honoured to be given the opportunity to convey my experience of working on a Marvel picture and give you some insight into my particular area of expertise, the weapons. As the weapons master on a production, Thor Ragnarok, my responsibility was to absorb through Richie, the production designer, and ultimately the director, the overarching design aesthetic of the film, the nature of the dramatic action, the journey of the characters, and reflect those considerations back across the budgeting, design, manufacture, scheduling, and risk management of the prop weapons that you see on screen. I suppose on face value, for young people in the audience, the job title, Weapons Master, sounds like a dream gig. Being part of the development of a fantasy world which brings joy to millions of cinema goers the world over. Well, today I'd like to bring you back to Earth and draw your attention to the risk element of my work. To broadly outline how filming a contemporary superhero film while attempting to suspend the plausibility of this reality is a risky business. To start, these productions are hugely ambitious. The pre-production period feels like preparing to go into battle. The battle plan is the script, the field marshal is the director, and a chain of command develops down through all the different departments that make up a film crew. We are in the trenches together, and time, the marching of time, is the enemy. Now, to up the stakes of this battle, our warriors are A-list actors, million-dollar performers, say for instance Kate Blanchett, portrayed doing high-velocity, high-impact, superhuman feats, vanquishing her rivals with a sword. It's edgy stuff. Keeping Blanchett happy and healthy is really important, so she's a risk. Now, you have a script that you may be surprised is still being developed right up to the day of shooting. You have a shooting schedule that refuses to get nailed down, and you have limited access to the director. That's a risk. You have the creative process itself, the sharing of ideas and concepts, the myriad of interdepartmental communications, the rumours, the misinterpretations, the last-minute changes. That's a risk. Now, while all this is going on, I'm concentrating on the weapons, inherently dangerous objects. My major preoccupation is to avoid risk, or at least mitigate as much as possible the element of risk. Pre-planning is my only safeguard against the risk of something not going right, or at the very least, the risk of embarrassment, not being prepared or having an impact on the flow of the shoot. On set with this many people involved and the big money is being spent, you don't want to hold things up. Believe me, you don't want to be that guy. So I use my crystal ball and gaze beyond the words on the page. The script is our guide, our baseline of information. So I explore within those few lines and try to flesh out an understanding of all the weaponry requirements for each scene, its characters, its settings, and all the parameters that may have an effect on the action. The potential risk of a scenario, to make predictions about how things might go on the set, and to try and accommodate those predictions with a measured plan. I'm often required to think beyond what is classically considered a weapon, things within the constructed environment that become weapons through the course of the action. Say, for instance, a character literally ripping apart a section of a spaceship to use as a shield. I mean, these are superhuman people. They're like super characters, and they can do whatever they want with a set. So my concern is to help enhance the performance, to make the scene feel authentic by creating weapons that, if not real, appear to you, the audience, as real. Marvel movies are comics brought to life. They are age-old, good versus evil, combative action films, superheroes with special powers and weapons to match. The weaponry is hugely important to character recognition. Not only is there an intrinsic gravity and power attached to a beautifully made weapon, they also serve as an extension of the character's personality. Helps them become instantly recognisable to an audience that is both fascinated and devoted to their favourite hero. Imagine Wolverine without his claws. Thor without his hammer. It's inconceivable. You only have to look at the dominance of the superhero genre in cinema, the popularity of the Comic-Con events that are held around the world, the huge commercial business made through cross-promotion and film merchandising to understand that people really love these films. The escape, the thrills and spills, the adrenaline. So that is another element of risk, the audience's attachment to these characters and their ferocious expectation. It's got to look cool because fans will no doubt make their judgment. Thor Ragnarok is set in 3 different realms. Thor's home realm of Asgard, themed on a futuristic medieval England, the asymmetric kaleidoscopic realm of Sakaar, a world defined stylistically by the work of renowned Marvel artist Jack Kirby, and Brisbane, or Brisbane filmed as present-day New York. All the weapons were designed to affect those realms. The film is literally bristling with weapons, over 800 individual pieces. So just as an aside, I find it ludicrous that at the same time in science fiction worlds that can allow for time travel and realm hopping, futuristic weaponry and spaceships, there is still the use of legions of soldiers running around with sword, spear and shield. I guess we all love our sword and sandal movies. Our fascination for the imagined time when there was chivalry and conflict was resolved with the simplicity of hand-to-hand combat. A winner takes all resolution. Richie and I often speak of maybe one day working on a quiet, non-violent film where conflict was resolved with a sharp rhetorical flourish or maybe a feather duster. But fancy weaponry and violent action are part and parcel of this film genre. This is arguably the most popular, most successful art medium in the world today, and Marvel, with their captivating characters and a catalogue of storylines to draw upon, stand at the vanguard of this medium. Okay, so let's get back to our theme of risk. In our contemporary lives, most of us have in our pockets a phone that can capture great video, slow motion, time lapse. It's pretty awesome. Well, if you can magnify that capability many times over, you will appreciate that modern cinema cameras can see everything, every fine detail, every imperfection, which is then projected onto a screen 20 foot tall. That kind of fidelity is intimidating, and the props we make are foreground in the frame, right up in your face. They're hero props, and the quality of that object has to be exceptional to be authentic on screen. In terms of prop weapons, the stakes are a little higher. If a weapon is to appear real, then it also needs to share the characteristics of a real weapon. Anatomic, ergonomic, balanced, durable, fashionable, that is my prescription for a great prop weapon. The superhero genre demands next level innovation, and for all intents and purposes, the creation of a great weapon is an exercise in industrial design. Our concept illustrations to start, hugely important in terms of developing the initial look and feel of the design, then increasingly in the employment of people who have the skill set to develop 3D concept models, which are further refined until something sticks. Once the concept gets the director's ticker of approval, which Richie can attest is a process, and ultimately the approval by Marvel, who are keen to develop their merchandising opportunity, we pass those designs over to our prop manufacturing department. This is a superb team of talented creative people, technical, mechanical, electrical people, sculptors, moulding experts, fantastic prop painters, metal and leather workers who work hard to create props under the pressure of a demanding timeline. Much like other industries, technology is rapidly changing the manufacturing process. While there'll always be the need for hand craftsmanship, the demand for precise design is changing that. 3D printing technology and CNC machines that control the cutting and shaping of materials, they're fast, they're efficient, and they're gaining a control on the prototyping process. It's all about having absolute control over the outcome, the small tolerances, the intricate surface details. Now, all this sounds wonderful, right? Well, it is to a point, but humans are tactile creatures, and things don't always translate from a computer screen to the physical world. The technology provides more possibility, more options, and this prototyping process goes back and forth and eats into precious time. Creative people, God love them, are also prone to veer off brief. Experimentation is great and often leads to brilliant outcomes, but once the director is set on an idea, that's what we aim to deliver. No surprises, unless of course the director changes their mind. At this point, careful consideration must be given to costuming. Weapons often have to be worn by the actors, and the risk here is that the costume designer will have a lot to say about how that works. And the actor may also have strong feelings and provide input on the weapon's design. I mean, it's not like I'm going to question Sir Anthony Hopkins about his design ideas. Now add to the tightening construction timeline the addition of practical lighting elements. Marvel want to give their audience a wow factor, and if their heroes can perform superhuman feats, then the weapons must be whiz-bang, light-pulsing wonders. Complete with radio transmitters and bespoke lighting, the next level prop weapon is now controlled on set in real time by a dedicated lighting tech. The more levels of complexity, the greater the risk. As the weapons master, my management responsibility also extends to the use of firearms on set. Since 1996, Australia has implemented some of the toughest gun control legislation in the Western world, making access to contemporary firearms particularly onerous. I'm not a gunner myself and would never consider working without highly qualified people. Our armourers are often ex-military or law enforcement professionals, and I'm more than happy to leave it in their safe hands. On the flip side of that coin, a prop weapon can also help ensure the safety of an actor. A fake weapon or a fake gun, a machine gun, can look just as intimidating as the real thing when well done, and doesn't put actors in any immediate threat. So how do we prepare to film Marvel's highly choreographed action scenes? Scenes involving complicated stunt work, often filmed over several days or weeks. First and foremost, it is essential to factor in to the manufacturing process a set of duplicate props with physical properties that can respond to any situation in real time. In the prop world, there is never just one of anything. The saying goes, 2 is 1 and 1 is none. We always provide duplicates of everything. If a prop breaks or is worn out, there's always a contingency. Without that, it's again risky. The filmmaking process culminates on set when all the departments are focused on that present moment. Lights, camera, action. This is the moment to execute all your pre-planning. You have a series of takes to sharpen your act, but that's all you get. Once that moment passes, you have missed your chance. It's intense, but it's intensely satisfying when it all comes together. So being able to preempt that moment is a key attribute of a good props department. So my brief here today, folks, is to reveal to you the truth behind the hammer. The prop, so famous it gets its own name, Mjolnir. I think we made around 18 Mjolnirs on this film. I think I kind of lost count, but we made a lot and all prepared with different characteristics for different situations. Hero quality hammers for close-up work, lightweight fiberglass hammers, soft rubber ones, medium soft ones, hard ones, acrylic hammers with LED lights in them. Chris Hemsworth, who plays Thor, liked the heavy ones, so the strain of his lifting, it made his muscles flex impressively. We made a couple for Kate Blanchett that was slightly smaller in size, so she looked more commanding when holding them. We called them the Lady Hammer. For visual effects shots, we made a bunch of hammers out of florist foam that Kate could crush in her bare hands. So that footage could be then used as a guide to simulate a naturalistic digital effect. The visual effects department is obviously hugely important in a Marvel picture. The cost and time spent on building sets and capturing certain situations in a real way is extremely high. So today, films rely more and more on shooting in front of a blue screen, with the background painted in at a later date. This can make it extremely difficult for actors to get into character. A great prop can help them do that. So at the risk of spoiling your illusions and hero worship, I'm going to briefly demystify the shooting process and describe some of the tricks employed while using a sword fighting sequence as an example. So here we go. We give the actors their hero swords, one of a range of swords that will cater to the needs of different beats in the fight choreography. If the action is particularly aggressive, we might use rubber swords. Say the director might want to see the actor copping a vicious blow, then flying across a room and literally put them through a wall. Hell, why not 2 walls? To safeguard our million-dollar actor, a stunt double is used to perform the stunt. When the safety of the stunt performer is in question, we'll cheat and use a stumpy, just the hilt of the sword, to provide a level of safety. At this point, the visual effects department will take over and digitally replace the sword in post-production. So thankfully, I'm not alone in all this prism of risk. In situations like this, the visual effects department provide a reassuring safety net. Now the stunt performers, they have very little respect for our props. They will, if they can, break everything. They will not hold back. End of story. These are heavy-hitting, brutal encounters. The willingness of these stunt performers to improve the action take on take, despite the punishment their body receive, it's impressive, and I have nothing but respect for their dedication to safety and their craft. Now, the props manufacturing team have meanwhile prepared a couple of hero swords made from aluminium or steel, which the VFX team have 3D scanned. Its colour, its detail, texture, the nature of the light reflecting off the sword surface have all been recorded. Now they have an exact 3D representation of that sword, which they can manipulate in a 3D environment in any orientation or lighting situation. After the stunt is performed on set, the hero swords are then filmed separately in that same environment, same lighting setup. All this information is then used to replace the real sword with a virtual sword, giving the director the control to capture the action as realistically as possible in a controlled, safe work environment. And that's the mantra for a weapons master: maximum realism, minimum risk. We in props are often asked to provide the impossible. We are not magicians, so I'd like to advise any aspiring director here today, unfortunately, the laws of physics still apply in this universe. In summing up, I'd like to thank Marvel for choosing Queensland to make their film and putting their faith behind the expertise of our world-class filmmakers. I'd like to express my gratitude to the Queensland Government and in turn Queenslanders for their generous support of our film industry. Your investment has helped encourage globally successful companies like Marvel to produce films here, generating substantial flow-on effects for the broader economy. I would also like to acknowledge the work of the New Zealanders who held key positions in the design and directorial team on this film. I believe Taika, with his first big budget film as director, will inject a lot of playfulness and perhaps, judging by the trailer, a pinch of self-awareness that is refreshing to this genre. So take the risk, see the film, and I hope you enjoy this latest instalment to the Marvel Universe. Thank you.